Most people are raised to believe that honesty, kindness, and fairness are the keys to survival. But what if the very values you were taught to honor are the same tools used against you? What if the world doesn't reward virtue, but punishes it? Today, I'll show you the warning you were never meant to hear, because once you know it, you'll never see leaders, friends, or even yourself in the same way again. The illusion of morality. From the moment we are born, the world begins weaving a net of rules around us. Parents, teachers, preachers, and leaders whisper the same tune: be good, be honest, be kind. They teach us that morality is the highest virtue, that truth will protect us, and that goodness will carry us to safety. But those who accept this at face value walk blind into the arena of life, where wolves hide behind the robes of saints. For morality, in the hands of rulers, is not a sacred law, but a stage performance designed to pacify the masses. It is a theater where appearances are mistaken for reality, and where the actors who play virtue most convincingly are often the least virtuous of all. The illusion of morality has always been the first and most effective chain of power. It binds people not with iron shackles, but with invisible expectations. Citizens, soldiers, and workers live under the belief that their leaders are moral guardians, that decisions are made with fairness and justice. Yet history shows the opposite. The most enduring rulers were not those who practiced what they preached, but those who understood the necessity of masking cruelty with virtue. They built reputations as defenders of justice while waging wars of greed. They declared loyalty to truth while weaving lies that served their ambition. And because the crowd wished to believe in their purity, the crowd looked away from the blood that stained their hands. Why is morality such a convenient disguise? Because the human mind clings to the comfort of simple rules. It is easier for the masses to believe in a black and white world of good and evil than to accept the gray fog of real power. Leaders exploit this weakness. They smile in public, speak of fairness, and weep at funerals, while behind closed doors they plot betrayals, buy loyalties, and strike down rivals without hesitation. They know that as long as they present the mask of morality, the people will forgive, excuse, or ignore nearly any crime. The stage is set, the audience is eager, and the performance continues. Consider the nature of promises. A moral leader will claim that promises are sacred, that breaking them is dishonorable. But in truth, a promise is only as strong as its usefulness. When keeping it serves power, it is honored. When breaking it ensures survival, it is discarded. And yet, the same leader will insist on the holiness of promises to those below him. He will demand loyalty, he will demand obedience, and he will shame those who falter. Thus morality becomes a weapon, not a guide, a standard imposed on the weak, but never binding on the strong. The illusion extends beyond politics and into daily life. In business, the clever man praises honesty while hiding his calculations. He speaks of fairness while negotiating with hidden advantages. The illusion of morality allows him to appear trustworthy, and once trust is secured, exploitation follows. In love, too, people present themselves as virtuous, faithful, and devoted, while concealing desires that contradict their words. Everywhere you turn, morality is less a truth and more a mask, polished to shine before others while concealing what lies beneath. The danger of this illusion is not simply that rulers lie, but that people want them to lie. The crowd does not demand truth, because truth is heavy and sharp. Truth forces them to see their own cowardice, their own corruption, their own willingness to trade liberty for safety. Instead, they demand the sweet lies of morality. They want to believe their leaders are righteous, their systems are just, and their sacrifices are noble. They willingly close their eyes to corruption, so long as the illusion remains intact. A leader who understands this does not need to be moral. He only needs to appear moral. The appearance is more powerful than the reality, for the appearance satisfies the desires of the people. But those who live inside this illusion, without question, are doomed. The man who clings to morality as an absolute will find himself outmaneuvered by those who understand its fragility. He will speak the truth when silence would protect him. He will honor promises when betrayal would save him, and he will expose his intentions when disguise would shield him. Such a man may be praised by poets after his death, but in life, he will be broken by sharper minds. The illusion of morality was never meant to protect the individual. It was meant to control him. To see through the illusion requires a ruthless kind of clarity. One must understand that morality, as preached by leaders, is a script, not a law. To judge a man by his words is foolish. Only his actions reveal his intent. When a ruler calls for justice, ask who profits from it. When he demands sacrifice, ask who grows stronger from it. When he condemns dishonor, ask what betrayal he hides behind his sermon. Do not be blinded by the stage performance. The actor who cries loudest for virtue is often the most skilled in vice. And yet, this knowledge is dangerous. For to see morality as an illusion is to strip away the comfort that shields most men from despair. The world becomes harsher, colder, more unforgiving. But it also becomes clearer. No longer bound by false rules, one can begin to act according to reality instead of fantasy. And reality teaches that those who endure are not those who cling to purity, but those who master the art of appearing pure, while acting with calculation. The necessity of fear power is never secured by love alone. Love is fragile, soft, and dependent on the whims of others. A man may love today and despise tomorrow, and what is built upon affection can collapse the moment desire cools. Fear, however, cuts deeper. Fear chains the heart more tightly than love, for it binds not through choice, but through necessity. Where love offers freedom, fear enforces obedience, and in the realm of power, where survival is never guaranteed, it is fear, not love, that preserves authority. The first truth one must accept is that people are inconsistent. They are loyal when it is easy, but their loyalty crumbles when tested by hardship. They will pledge their devotion with passionate words, but those words vanish the instant they face risk. Love inspires grand declarations, yet in the face of danger, self-preservation overwhelms affection. A ruler who depends solely on the love of his followers builds his throne upon sand, for when storms strike, the crowd scatters. But a ruler who establishes fear secures himself with stone, for even in times of chaos, fear compels obedience. Fear has a permanence that love cannot match. People may stop loving you for reasons beyond your control, but they cannot stop fearing you so easily. Love can be stolen by rivals, corrupted by jealousy, or weakened by distance. But fear lingers. It survives absence, it survives temptation, and it survives betrayal. Even when a subject despises his ruler, fear restrains his hand from rebellion. Hatred can coexist with fear, but hatred without fear quickly erupts into open defiance. This is why leaders who rely only on affection eventually fall, while those who cultivate fear endure. Consider the nature of respect. Many believe respect is earned through virtue, kindness, and generosity. Yet respect without fear is shallow. It survives only as long as the leader satisfies the desires of his people. When he cannot fulfill their expectations, respect dissolves. But respect born of fear is far more enduring, for it does not depend on satisfaction. It depends on the understanding that defiance carries consequences too heavy to bear. Men respect what they dread, and they hesitate to betray what they cannot escape. Some will argue that fear breeds resentment, that those who rule through fear risk being despised. This is true, but to be despised is not always fatal, so long as one is also feared. Despised and not feared, that is weakness. Loved but not feared, that is vulnerability. But feared even when hated, that is security. People rarely risk their lives against someone they fear, but they will eagerly betray someone they love if betrayal promises gain. Fear does not eliminate betrayal, but it makes betrayal dangerous, and danger silences many ambitions. The application of fear does not require cruelty at every moment. In fact, endless cruelty dulls its edge and breeds reckless hatred. True fear is sharpened through calculated displays of power. A single act of decisive punishment creates a memory that echoes louder than 100 small acts of kindness. To execute justice swiftly and without hesitation reminds all who watch that authority is not to be trifled with. The execution of one betrayer discourages 100 others. The exile of one conspirator silences countless whispers. Fear spreads faster than love, for love must be nurtured, but fear plants itself with a single act and grows in the shadows of memory. Observe how armies are controlled. Soldiers are often promised honor, brotherhood, and reward. Yet what keeps them in line when death approaches? It is not only love for their comrades, but fear of punishment, fear of disgrace, fear of their commander's wrath. An army ruled by affection alone is fragile. An army ruled by fear remains disciplined even in desperation. The commander who is loved but not feared watches his men desert when the battle turns grim. The commander who is feared but not loved watches his men march forward despite their hatred, because they dread the consequences of retreat more than they dread the enemy. In politics, the same principle applies. Citizens may adore a leader when prosperity flourishes, but prosperity is fickle. Wealth fades, harvests fail, markets collapse. When prosperity ends, affection evaporates. But fear can survive poverty. Even when hunger gnaws at the stomach, fear restrains rebellion. The people may curse their ruler in secret, but they will not raise their hands against him if they know punishment is swift and certain. Fear also strengthens loyalty among allies. Friendships between powerful men are rarely sincere. They are born from convenience and ambition. Love in politics is nothing more than shared interest. The moment interests diverge, love turns to rivalry. But fear cements alliances. When an ally fears the consequences of betrayal, he remains bound even when love or affection fails. A ruler who wishes to keep allies loyal must not only offer rewards, but also demonstrate the dangers of treachery. The wise understand that fear is not chaos but order. Fear creates predictability. When people fear, their actions are easier to anticipate, easier to control. Love is unpredictable, for it depends on emotions that change without warning. But fear is steady. It guides behavior in ways that affection cannot. The man who fears punishment will hesitate before betrayal, calculate before rebellion, and often choose silence over defiance. One must also recognize that fear must be directed, not scattered. If fear becomes blind terror, it can lead to revolt. But when fear is precise, when it is linked directly to disobedience and betrayal, it becomes a stabilizing force. People accept strict laws if they know exactly what disobedience will cost them. The clarity of punishment strengthens authority, while the randomness of cruelty weakens it. Fear must be wielded like a scalpel, not swung like a hammer. Thus, in the theater of power, fear becomes the most reliable actor. Love may win applause, charm the audience, and fill the stage with warmth, but it cannot sustain the performance forever. Fear, though colder and less celebrated, ensures the show does not collapse. Those who dismiss fear as brutality fail to grasp its necessity, for in the struggle to endure, love is optional, but fear is indispensable. The masks of power is never worn naked. It must be clothed in appearances, veiled by symbols, hidden behind carefully crafted illusions. No ruler, no commander, no ambitious man can survive long if he reveals the true nature of his intent. To dominate openly, to show the hand that schemes, is to invite resistance. But to mask power, to present it as noble, virtuous, or even selfless, is to disarm suspicion. Deception is not merely a tactic. It is the very foundation of authority. Those who rule without masks soon face the wrath of those they govern, for the raw face of ambition is too brutal for the masses to endure. The mask serves many purposes. To the people, it is reassurance. It convinces them that their ruler is a protector, that his ambition is for their benefit, that his strength exists to secure their peace. The masses do not wish to see hunger for domination. They wish to see guardianship, sacrifice, and service. Thus, the ruler must conceal his ruthlessness behind the smile of benevolence. He may crush his rivals in silence, but in public he must speak of unity. He may manipulate laws for his own advantage, but in his proclamations he must praise justice. The mask must never slip, for once it does, the illusion is shattered, and people realize they are subjects, not partners. Masks also confuse enemies. A rival who cannot discern your true intentions is forced into hesitation. When you appear weak, he may underestimate you. When you appear friendly, he may reveal his own vulnerabilities. When you appear virtuous, he may fail to prepare for treachery. The mask becomes a weapon sharper than steel, for it leads others to miscalculate. And in the struggle for power, the man who miscalculates first is the man who falls. Deception, however, is not only about hiding malice. It is about shaping perception. A ruler must not simply conceal, he must also craft the image he wishes others to believe. If he desires loyalty, he must appear trustworthy. If he desires reverence, he must appear wise. If he desires obedience, he must appear just. None of these appearances require truth, only performance. A man may be cruel in his heart, yet if he plays the role of a merciful father, the people will trust him more deeply than if he showed them his real face. They will cling to the illusion, because illusions are more comforting than reality. Consider religion as an instrument of the mask. For centuries, rulers have cloaked themselves in piety, speaking of divine mission, pretending to kneel before higher powers, when in truth their only god was ambition. Yet the people embraced the mask, for it soothed their fears. To believe that a ruler served heaven was easier than to accept that he served himself. The mask of sanctity turned conquest into holy duty, transformed taxation into sacred offering, and disguised tyranny as divine order. It mattered little whether the ruler believed in the words he spoke. What mattered was that the people did. The mask is also necessary in personal dealings. Among allies, one must appear loyal while quietly preparing for betrayal. Among friends, one must appear honest while hiding ambition. Among rivals, one must appear weak while plotting strength. Those who reveal too much of their intent lose their advantage. The man who boasts of his power before it is secure invites enemies to strike him down. The man who shows his hatred too openly warns his rival to prepare. But the man who smiles embraces and whispers of trust while sharpening his blade in silence. This man controls the game. It is not enough to wear the mask, one must also wear it convincingly. A poor actor is soon exposed. Hesitation, inconsistency, or arrogance can betray the disguise. The successful ruler practices his role until it becomes second nature. He weeps when weeping is required, even if his heart feels nothing. He praises loyalty even as he plans disloyalty. He speaks of justice even as he twists the law for his gain. To the observer, his mask appears natural, his words sincere, his gestures authentic. The stronger his performance, the weaker the suspicion of others. But deception requires discipline. Many fall into the trap of believing their own masks, confusing the image they project with the truth of their nature. This self-deception is fatal. A ruler who convinces himself that he is truly loved may forget to maintain fear. A leader who believes his own virtue may fail to act ruthlessly when survival demands it. The mask is for others, never for the self. The wise man wears the mask, but never confuses it with his own reflection. He knows that behind the curtain, when the performance is over, the ruthless calculations remain. There is also power in timing. Masks need not be permanent, they can be exchanged as situations change. In times of prosperity, the mask of generosity wins hearts. In times of crisis, the mask of severity commands discipline. In peace, the mask of friendship disarms rivals. In war, the mask of vengeance rallies followers. To cling to one mask forever is to appear rigid and predictable. To change masks when circumstances demand is to remain fluid and unassailable. The art of the mask is not confined to rulers alone. Every ambitious man must learn it. In courts, in councils, in markets, in families, power hides behind appearances. The merchant appears humble to secure favor, but ruthless in negotiation. The courtier appears flattering to win trust, but mocks in secret. The husband appears devoted while pursuing desire elsewhere. The world is a stage where every man who seeks advantage must perform. The difference between the powerful and the powerless is that the powerful control their mask, while the powerless reveal their face too easily. The greatest danger lies in exposure. When the mask slips, when the people glimpse the raw hunger for power beneath, panic and rebellion may follow. Once trust is broken, it cannot be repaired by words alone. This is why the mask must be guarded with vigilance. A single careless word, a single act of arrogance, can undo years of performance. The ruler who forgets this finds his throne shaken not by enemies, but by the betrayal of his own image. The weakness of the masses, the crowd has always been the easiest to command and the hardest to trust. They are vast in number, but small in courage. They shout of freedom, but when danger rises, they beg for safety. They praise truth, but when truth wounds them, they turn their faces away. The weakness of the masses lies not in their size, but in their nature. They are driven less by reason than by hunger, less by principle than by fear, less by justice than by convenience. Whoever understands this weakness does not need to force obedience. He only needs to offer comfort, and the crowd will follow willingly. The masses believe themselves to be strong because they are many. They believe that numbers alone make them powerful. But numbers without unity are nothing. A mob may roar in the streets, but if it is not guided by a single will, it scatters at the first sign of resistance. People imagine themselves brave in the company of others, but when left alone, their courage vanishes. 1,000 men shouting are formidable. 1,000 men silent in their homes are powerless. It is unity that grants strength, and unity is the one thing the masses can rarely maintain. Their desires are too divided, their fears too numerous, their loyalties too fragile. This is why rulers rise from the crowd, but are never truly of it. The ruler is the one who seizes unity from division, who takes the chaos of the masses and bends it into order. The people do not follow him because he is the best among them, but because he is the one who offers them the illusion of safety. They follow him not out of principle but out of need. He promises them bread in famine, peace in turmoil, and hope in despair. And even when he cannot deliver, his promises are enough to bind them longer than the truth would. The weakness of the masses is their hunger for comfort. They will forgive lies if the lies soothe their fear. The masses also lack memory. They forget betrayal when fed with new promises. They forget corruption when entertained with spectacle. They forget cruelty when distracted by hope. This forgetfulness makes them pliable, for they can be deceived again and again without learning. A ruler who betrays his people may face their anger for a season, but soon they grow weary of anger, and they accept him again if he offers them new illusions. Their outrage is loud but short-lived, while their submission is quiet but enduring. The wise ruler understands this rhythm and waits out their fury, knowing that time dulls their resentment. Another weakness lies in their fear of responsibility. Freedom is heavy, for it demands decision. Responsibility requires sacrifice, and sacrifice terrifies the crowd. They speak of liberty, but most desire not freedom but protection. They prefer the certainty of chains to the uncertainty of choice. They will surrender rights, surrender wealth, even surrender dignity, if only someone promises them stability. This is why the masses are easily ruled. They hand over their power not because it is taken from them, but because they are relieved to be rid of it. They trade liberty for the comfort of servitude. Observe how the masses are stirred by appearances rather than substance. They are swayed more by a stirring speech than by a sound policy. They are moved more by a dramatic gesture than by a quiet achievement. They are drawn to the theater of leadership, the flags, the parades, the grand promises, more than to the reality behind them. The ruler who masters spectacle rules more securely than the one who masters governance. The people prefer to be entertained than to be educated, for entertainment soothes while education disturbs. This love of spectacle blinds them, and through their blindness, power thrives. The crowd is also ruled by envy. They resent those who rise above them. Yet they also crave leaders who stand higher than themselves. They despise power, yet they are drawn to it. They will cheer for the ruler who crushes his rivals, even while whispering of his tyranny, because secretly they admire strength. Their envy makes them contradictory. They despise what they obey, and they obey what they despise. This contradiction ensures they never rise against authority with lasting unity, for their own jealousy divides them more than any ruler could. Fear is the final weakness that binds the masses. They fear change, they fear loss, they fear risk. A man will endure oppression rather than risk chaos, and a people will accept injustice rather than face uncertainty. Fear of the unknown is stronger than hatred of the known. This fear is the ruler's shield, for as long as rebellion seems dangerous, the people will prefer submission. They will grumble, they will curse, but they will remain obedient, for obedience feels safer than defiance. The masses, then, are like water. They are many, they are restless, and they are powerful when gathered, but they have no shape of their own. They flow wherever they are guided. The leader who understands their weakness shapes them like a riverbed, directing their energy toward his own ends. The leader who does not understand their weakness is drowned by their chaos. To despise the masses is foolish, for they are the foundation of all power. But to trust them is equally foolish, for their loyalty shifts like the tide. The weakness of the masses is not in their lack of strength, but in their lack of will. They prefer to be led, and they are led by whoever speaks most loudly to their fears and desires. They believe they choose, but in truth, they only respond. The cunning man understands this and places before them the choices that serve his ambition. He offers them the illusion of decision, while in reality, the path has already been set. The crowd walks willingly into the cage, believing it is a sanctuary. The danger of transparency, to reveal too much, is to invite ruin. Power thrives in the shadows, not in the light. A ruler, a commander, or any man seeking authority must learn that transparency is the enemy of survival. When others can see the full extent of your intentions, they can predict your moves, anticipate your strategies, and exploit your weaknesses. Openness may appear virtuous, but in the arena of power, it is foolishness dressed as honesty. The man who bares his soul to the world leaves himself defenseless. For once his secrets are exposed, he is no longer feared, no longer respected, and no longer in control. Transparency is praised by those who are weak, because it forces the strong to surrender their advantage. The masses demand openness from their leaders, not because they desire truth, but because they crave the illusion of control. They believe that if a ruler speaks every thought, if he shows every plan, then he belongs to them. Yet such demands are traps. The moment a ruler becomes completely transparent, he ceases to be the master and becomes the servant of his own words. He is bound not by his power, but by the expectations of the crowd, which shift as quickly as the wind. The danger lies not only in revealing present intentions, but also in revealing weakness. Once others know where you are vulnerable, they will strike without hesitation. Transparency hands enemies the weapons they need to destroy you. Consider how rivals wait patiently for a single confession, a single careless word, to turn public opinion against a man. They do not need his downfall to be real. They only need the perception of weakness. A ruler who admits error openly gives his enemies material to craft their attack. A leader who reveals his fears emboldens those who plot against him. Silence protects, while words expose. There is also peril in revealing too much strength. If you boast of your power, your enemies will conspire together to cut you down before you become unstoppable. If you display your wealth too openly, you stir envy and greed. If you declare every ambition, you awaken resistance before your plans can take shape. Transparency makes you predictable, and predictability is fatal in the struggle for dominance. The man whose every move can be read is the man who has already lost. The wise conceal their true intentions behind layers of deception. They speak of peace while preparing for war. They promise loyalty while planning betrayal. They declare weakness to invite mercy, then strike with hidden strength. To appear transparent while remaining opaque is the highest art. People believe they see into your heart, but in truth, they see only the reflection you place before them. This false transparency disarms suspicion, for men are quick to trust what they think they understand. They are less wary of the man who confesses his supposed flaws, because they mistake confession for sincerity. Yet even this act of honesty can be a mask, a calculated move to mislead. Transparency is also dangerous because it breeds accountability. When you reveal your plans, you are chained to them. If circumstances shift and you must change course, the crowd will accuse you of betrayal. They will call you untrustworthy, even if your shift was necessary for survival. By concealing your full intent, you retain flexibility. You may act as conditions demand, without being bound to promises made in the open. Secrecy grants freedom, while transparency builds cages. Those who demand transparency are rarely sincere in their demands. They do not wish to see truth, they wish to see weakness. They do not want honesty, they want leverage. A rival who insists on openness does so, because he hopes to use what you reveal against you. A people who clamor for transparency do so, because they believe it gives them power over their ruler. But when the ruler resists, when he keeps his silence, he denies them the very weapon they seek. Silence creates mystery, and mystery inspires caution. Even in personal dealings, transparency is perilous. To reveal your desires exposes you to manipulation. To confess your fears invites exploitation. To declare your loyalty openly makes betrayal easier. For the other knows exactly how far he can push you without breaking your bond. The man who keeps his thoughts hidden forces others to remain uncertain, and uncertainty makes them cautious. Transparency breeds recklessness in others, but secrecy breeds restraint. The crowd loves the idea of the honest man, the one who reveals his heart without hesitation. But history remembers that such men are often the first to be betrayed, the first to be ruined, the first to fall. Their honesty is praised after their death, but in life it served as the blade that cut them down. By contrast, those who concealed, who deceived, who spoke less than they knew endured. They may have been despised for their secrecy, but they survived. And in the game of power, survival is the only true measure of success. The appearance of transparency, however, can be used as a weapon. By revealing carefully chosen truths, a ruler may win trust while concealing the truths that matter most. By confessing small weaknesses, he distracts from greater strengths. By admitting minor errors, he gains credibility even as he hides greater schemes. This controlled transparency is not honesty but strategy, a way of feeding the hunger of the people while keeping the real feast hidden. The masses feel satisfied, believing they have seen behind the curtain, when in fact they have only seen what was meant for their eyes. The man who guards his intentions, who reveals only what strengthens him and conceals what weakens him, moves through the world untouchable. He confuses rivals, controls allies, and pacifies the crowd. But the man who throws open his heart, who seeks virtue in openness, finds that transparency is not a shield, but a dagger handed to others. And once placed in their hands, it will be used against him without mercy. The price of ignorance is the costliest weakness a man can bear, for it leaves him unarmed in a battlefield where every other player carries hidden weapons. To move through the world without understanding the true laws of power is to walk blindfolded among predators. The man who refuses to see the nature of ambition, deceit, and control becomes prey, and prey does not choose its fate. He may believe himself safe in his innocence, but his safety is an illusion maintained only until someone decides to take advantage of him. In the game of survival, ignorance is not merely naivety. It is a death sentence delayed. The ignorant cling to ideals they were taught as children, believing that the world rewards honesty, fairness, and virtue. They live by rules designed to keep them obedient, not to protect them. These rules are useful only to those who know how to exploit them. When the ignorant man insists on absolute honesty, he exposes himself to liars. When he clings to loyalty, he binds himself to masters who see his loyalty as chains to be pulled. When he obeys laws blindly, he becomes the tool of those who write the laws to serve themselves. Ignorance allows him to become a pawn, moved across the board without ever realizing the game exists. Those who understand power do not play by the rules they teach others. They know that morality is a mask, that fear is necessary, that deception is art, that the masses are weak, and that secrecy is survival. They exploit the ignorance of others because ignorance makes people predictable. The man who believes in pure virtue can be manipulated through appeals to his conscience. The man who believes in promises can be destroyed by betrayal. The man who believes the crowd is wise can be drowned by its stupidity. Ignorance turns strength into weakness, for even noble qualities become weapons in the hands of the cunning. Consider how easily the ignorant are ruled. They demand transparency from their leaders, believing they are owed the truth. Yet when the truth is too brutal, they recoil, preferring the comfort of lies. They claim to value justice, but they will accept injustice if it brings them security. They speak of freedom, but they surrender it eagerly when fear stirs their hearts. Ignorance blinds them to their own contradictions, and the ruler, who sees clearly, feeds them illusions and reaps obedience in return. Ignorance is costly because it prevents foresight. The man who does not understand power cannot anticipate betrayal until the knife is already in his back. He cannot recognize manipulation until his wealth, influence, or dignity are already stripped from him. He cannot defend himself because he cannot see the attack until it has succeeded. Knowledge gives warning, ignorance delivers surprise. And in a world where survival depends on anticipating threats, surprise is fatal. Ignorance also breeds dependence. The man who does not understand seeks guidance from others, placing his fate in their hands. He trusts their promises, their advice, their authority. But those who guide him do so for their own benefit, not his. The more ignorant he remains, the more easily he can be directed. He mistakes his dependence for loyalty, his obedience for virtue. In truth, he is nothing more than a servant who does not realize he serves. Even in personal life, ignorance exacts its price. The man who does not see through masks believes every word of affection, every vow of loyalty, every show of friendship. He gives trust freely, only to have it betrayed. He sacrifices for others who would never sacrifice for him. He imagines his sincerity will inspire sincerity in return, not realizing that sincerity is a weakness in a world where masks are worn by all who seek gain. His ignorance leads him into heartbreak, ruin, and exploitation, again and again, until either he learns or he perishes. There is also ignorance of self, the most dangerous of all. The man who does not understand his own nature, his own desires, his own weaknesses, is an open book to others. They will read him more clearly than he reads himself. They will press his weaknesses, flatter his vanities, stir his fears, and guide him where they want him to go. To lack knowledge of the self is to hand the keys of your mind to another. The ignorant man may believe himself free, but he is a puppet, and every string is pulled by someone else. The price of ignorance is not only personal, it is collective. Entire nations fall because the masses remain blind to the realities of power. They cheer for leaders who deceive them. They fight wars that serve ambitions not their own. They accept poverty while their rulers grow rich. They demand illusions and are destroyed by them. Their ignorance is not harmless. It builds empires for the cunning and graves for the obedient. History is filled with ruins not of cities, but of peoples who refused to see the truth until it was too late. Yet ignorance persists because it is comfortable. To know the truth is to carry a burden. Knowledge strips away illusions of fairness, safety, and innocence. It demands vigilance, calculation, and caution. Most men do not have the strength to bear this. They prefer the comfort of lies, the ease of trust, the simplicity of obedience. They pay the price willingly, even eagerly, because the cost of ignorance is invisible until the day it is collected. When it is collected, it is too late. The few who refuse ignorance stand apart. They see the masks, they recognize the necessity of fear. They understand the weakness of the masses, and they guard their intentions in silence. They do not play the game blindly, they play it with purpose. They may be hated, envied, or feared, but they are never helpless. They pay the price of vigilance, but that price is cheaper than the cost of ignorance. For ignorance takes everything: power, dignity, safety, even life, while knowledge, however heavy, preserves them. In every age, in every empire, the same laws of power repeat themselves. Masks hide ambition, fear holds the crowd, ignorance feeds the strong. And those who fail to see through the illusions become servants of the game, without even knowing they are playing it. The warnings you have just heard are not meant to frighten you. They are meant to awaken you. For once your eyes open to the reality beneath the surface, you can no longer be manipulated like the rest. You begin to recognize the traps, the performances, and the false promises that keep most people chained. But awakening is only the first step. Knowledge must be sharpened, tested, and expanded, or else it fades back into the fog of ignorance. That is why this journey cannot end here. Each story, each revelation, each lesson is another weapon placed in your hands against those who would use you as their pawn. If you want to see the world not as it pretends to be, but as it truly is, you must stay close. Subscribe, not for entertainment, but for survival. Because the truths you are not supposed to know are the very truths that will decide whether you rule or are ruled.